Yes, I think it's an epidemic industry-wide. There are people out there that stage accidents. My main job is to try and prevent future accidents from occurring, and if I could do that for the drivers, I would. I think it's important for drivers to know that when they're involved in an accident involving another party, that more times than not, it's going to end in a bodily injury litigation claim.
Hello and welcome to CB Talk, the Combined Transport Blackwell monthly podcast. Today is July 19th, 2024, and I'm your host, Nick Card, Vice President of Operations. On today's show, we're going to be joined by Melissa Dockery, our Director of Safety and Compliance. We're going to talk about all sorts of interesting safety, accidents, liability, and CSA questions. But first, the news. Drivers of the month for July are Harold Young in Glass and Flatbed, Ben Parente in Heavy Haul, and we have a special team for Blackwell, William and Sybil McElmurray. Congratulations to our drivers of the month. Our corporate employee of the month this month is Randy Spurlock. Congratulations, Randy. Thank you all so much for all that you do. In other news, Wyoming gets tough on drivers ignoring road closure signs. Starting July 1, Wyoming is enforcing a new law that writes big tickets for drivers that ignore road closure signs. Wyoming has had a spat recently of rollovers because of drivers ignoring the road closure signs and driving into high wind circumstances. Drivers will now receive tickets of up to $2,500 and potential license actions. Please make sure you obey any of the road closure signs in Wyoming. Normally, I would also tell us about the safety topic of the month here, but because our safety director is coming on the program, I thought I would let Melissa talk about that herself. And so now it's on to the interview. Today we're here with Melissa Dockery, our Director of Safety and Compliance. Melissa has been with Combined for 11 years. She started in our brokerage division. She moved to driver services, she managed driver services, and today she does all things safety and compliance. Melissa rides a Suzuki LTZ 400 quad of her very own at Bandon Dunes. Welcome, Melissa. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
So, Melissa, one of the things that we normally start the program with is we talk about the month's safety topic. And since I knew you were coming on the program, I thought, how better than to hear and talk a little bit more in depth about the safety topic directly with our Director of Safety. And so what is July's safety topic of the month?
July's safety topic is centered around road rage.
Okay. So what's prompted that?
Well, we've had a couple of incidences recently, 3 to be specific, in the last 3 months that have resulted in accidents, one being a jackknife trailer, and the driver was really lucky to not be injured.
Is that road rage because our drivers are practicing or experiencing road rage, or is that road rage in an awareness of road rage in the motoring public?
I think it's a mixed bag of both. The truck drivers have a lot to deal with out there with the four-wheelers, and in today's world, road rage is so prevalent amongst regular motorists, and I think it makes it extremely difficult for our truck drivers. But the road rage is also on our truck drivers' side as well.
So what are some tips that our drivers can put into practice in order to better deal with road rage and be safer out there?
I think it's important to remember that everybody has a bad day sometimes, and you never know what the next person is going through. And I think de-escalation techniques can be different for each person. But for me, what I like to do is I like to just try and take a deep breath and just remember that I don't know what that person is going through. And backing off is probably the most important thing. In all 3 instances that we had, our drivers failed to back off, which resulted in accidents and bodily injury.
I know for me, when I'm driving, sometimes, you're in a hurry to get somewhere, but if you get into an accident, that's always going to slow you down. There's no reason why you can't back off that 10 seconds and de-escalate a situation. So I'm glad we're bringing focus to that. Now, on the safety topic, since I talk about these every month, I was kind of curious, how does a safety topic actually like, how do you decide that that happens? What's the process there?
Well, sometimes it's reactionary, such as this one, because we saw a trend in road rage instances. So we wanted to raise awareness. But sometimes it's proactive. So in the wintertime, we'll cover winter driving. When school gets out, we try to, focus on being aware of pedestrians and kids and school buses.
Okay, so it really just depends on what's going on. And so you're looking at the situation on the ground, what's happening with the company, and what's going on with our, the world around us. Just trying to find like those areas where we can have the most impact on safety.
Yes, we like to identify trends and be proactive.
Gotcha. Well, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. So, one of the things that I know you'd want to talk about coming on the program, and I think this is a really fascinating topic, is how accidents in litigation impact the company and drivers and that whole sort of post-accident experience and what that means. And so I was hoping you could give us kind of like a high-level overview of what that is, and then we can start diving into some deeper questions.
I think it's important for drivers to know that when they're involved in an accident involving another party, that more times than not, it's going to end in a bodily injury litigation claim.
Bodily injury litigation. I think I understand those words, but that sounds a lot of legalese to me. Break that down.
So when you're involved in an accident with another party, the other party claims injury. They may not claim injury at the time of the accident, but sometimes they'll claim it later. And then they hire counsel and they sue the company for bodily injury.
So when you say that injury, that's the like, oh, my neck hurts. You hurt my back. Oh, they wear the neck brace. Do you think we see a lot of accidents where people are claiming sort of a fake bodily injury in order to try to get money? Is that sort of an ambulance chasing piece of this?
Yes, I think it's an epidemic industry wide. There are people out there that stage accidents.
Wow. So staging accidents. So we like, how does a driver prepare for that? I mean, how can you avoid that?
I think it's important for the drivers to always be aware of their surroundings. And I think it's important for them to anticipate what's going to happen ahead of time.
So I want to go back to as you were talking about the overview. So you were talking about how these accidents turn into litigation um, around this bodily injury. What does the timeline look like? What is the process? I mean, I would imagine like as a driver, right? You are involved in an incident, and then it's for most of the drivers, it's back to work. I mean, they've got to take care of their family, and so they're back on the road. They're driving again. But obviously, there's a lot of stuff that has to come after that, right? In terms of bringing up to litigation. So what is that process? How do we see that as a company, and what is that timeline?
The other party has up to 2 years to file a bodily injury claim. So it could be up to 2 years until we know that we are going to be involved in this litigation.
Wow, 2 years to file. And then if they file, how long does that take to get through the court system?
Litigation can take 3 to 4 years to go through the whole process. I mean, these things get drawn out for a very long time.
Wow. So you're possibly, so we're having to wait around 2 years to find out even if we're in litigation. Then once that happens, it's another 3 or 4 years to get through this process. And then at the end of it, obviously, hopefully we're found, not liable here, but I mean, what kind of liability are we talking about in some of these accidents?
Well, these claims can be really costly. More times than not, we're settling outside of court, and these people can be getting thousands of dollars. If it ends up in trial, it could cost tens of millions of dollars.
Wow. Geez, that's a lot of time and money. Wow. So, okay, so let's go back to that scene of the accident. I'm a driver. I'm involved in this accident. Potentially, even if it's not my fault, right? Like I could still get dragged into this. So what do I do as a driver at the scene in order to make sure that I'm not exposing myself or the company to any more liability?
It's extremely important to never admit fault when you're involved in an accident. Drivers also need to realize that saying I'm sorry or oh shoot, I shouldn't have done that, that can also be considered an admission of guilt. And we have to be careful because there's audio on the dash cams in the cab of our trucks.
So even saying I'm sorry can be an admission of guilt and create all these problems?
Yes, we've had a driver a couple of years ago who, in the heat of the moment, said, I'm sorry on the audio of the dash cam, and that was viewed as an admission of guilt.
Okay, so not admit guilt, don't apologize, don't say whoopsie daisy. What else?
Photos are important. 5, 10, and 15 feet away is extremely important so that we can get the full picture of what happened, photos of the other party, photos of the scene. It's important for us to see, was it clear or was it rainy that day? It's important for us to get the DOT number off of another truck or a license plate off of a car. Photos of the other party if you're able to take it so that we can prove that maybe they're not injured.
Okay. So you said 5, 10, 15 feet away. What should we be taking pictures of? Or just everything?
Everything, the scene of the accident, damage of the other vehicle, damage of our vehicle, the other party, maybe of the surroundings, any skid marks on the roadway. All of those things really play a key part in litigation and for our investigation.
Okay. So it helps us understand what happened, the facts on the ground, basically. And then obviously we have the dash cameras. So we've got some video footage, hopefully that shows some of the accident or at least what led up to it. We've got the pictures that show the aftermath of the accident so we can maybe reconstruct that accident. What else should we be looking at, or what data should we be getting when we're at that scene?
Well, there's a lot of data that we gather behind the scenes that the driver is unable to do. Our motive technology has a lot of telematics behind the scenes that we gather. GPS, hard braking, all of that plays a key factor in our investigation and litigation process.
Can you give me some examples of how this kind of stuff, these pictures, this information, how does that impact the litigation process?
Well, when the other party files a bodily injury claim, the plaintiff counsel requests everything under the sun. They want their driver qualification file, they want the pictures, they want maintenance records, they want the telematics, they want the video footage and pictures, because they're going to conduct their own investigation to try and determine liability.
Plaintiffs, what does that mean?
That is the other party
Okay.
that is filing suit.
So we collect all this data at the scene. We take all these pictures. We get all this stuff. We get it all to the plaintiff. And do they go away then?
I wish that they would go away. Sometimes taking a lot of photos and our dash cam footage and all the data that we collect really helps us fight the case. There was one instance where we were involved in an accident and somebody claimed bodily injury, and we were able to prove that they were up and walking around right after the scene of the accident and that they were uninjured. So it really helped our case.
And so with this, just thinking about this process, if they have 2 years to file, that can be a long time that you have to remember your eyewitnesses, you forget. But if you've got those pictures, well, then that's permanent, real evidence why it's so important.
That's why it's extremely important to take a lot of photos and that we preserve the video footage right away.
Okay. So we have processes, I'm assuming you had mentioned some of the behind the scenes data collection. So we're collecting all of that data and storing it away so we're ready to go in the event that these plaintiffs come back at us that within that 2-year time span, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So how do we, do we ever have situations where we have, what feels like, oh, this is a minor little incident, and then it turns into a big claim and we don't have very good data? Or are we, really good about keeping all of that stuff, even for the small things? How does that work out if things sort of balloon in our face, if you will?
If there's another party involved, we're collecting all that data automatically. Our claims department has a process that they follow immediately, and we also involve our insurance company. Sometimes we'll send out an accident reconstructionist. Recently, there was a driver who was stopped at a stoplight and took his foot off the brake for whatever reason and rolled back. It didn't even register on the GPS how fast he was rolling back, and we barely bumped the vehicle behind us. 2 weeks later, the other party filed suit for bodily injury.
So we're basically having to assume if there's a second party involved, it's going to be the worst case scenario. And we have to collect data. We have to take our pictures. We have to do everything as if it were the worst case.
That's what we've learned over time. It's just the way that the trucking industry is moving. It's an epidemic in the trucking industry.
So what drives that, do you think?
I think that there's just a lot of people out there to get something for nothing, and they've realized that they can target trucking companies, and it's become a huge problem.
Like a get rich quick scheme kind of a thing almost?
Yeah, I hear people joke and say that instead of their 401k plan, they're just going to go get hit by a truck.
I guess that's a sad state of affairs for the industry. I mean, what does this do for us I'm assuming, like you'd mentioned our insurance company, like if people are out there trying to get rich off of a trucking company, you'd mentioned staging accidents before, like how do we protect ourselves against this from an insurance perspective and costs? I'm assuming like that's got to be getting expensive. What's going on with that?
Yes, it's very expensive, and it continues to get more and more expensive every year. Our insurance premiums have been going up year over year.
Wow. Well, that's really a sad state of affairs. So just to recap, make sure I'm taking care of everything on this accident, right? So when we get into an incident that involves a second person, we are immediately have to be in the mindset of this is the worst case scenario, because this is something that can drag out multiple years way into the future. And so at the scene, we got to make sure we take good pictures, we collect good data. We've got a good team that's collecting the back end data. We're storing that for all those years, ensuring we don't have a claim. And even then, we still could be out of pocket thousands or millions of dollars because of these people who are trying to get rich off of a trucking company.
That's correct.
Wow, I wish my summary wasn't so accurate, because that's kind of a sad state of affairs.
It really is sad. And that's why I feel like it's really important to raise awareness with the drivers. I just don't think that we talk about it enough with them. They know that it happens, but there's so much behind the scenes stuff that goes on that's dragged on for years and years that if we can raise awareness to them, maybe they can help us with that process.
So thinking about like an accident that, what are those, like the one small thing that, like, if we could have a driver take away just one small thing from this conversation, what is the thing that you would like them to take away from this?
I wouldn't call it a small thing. I would say that if they could take anything from this, it would be the bigger picture.
Okay.
I need drivers to think of the bigger picture.
That it's not just an accident in the here and now, but it's the beginning of a long, drawn out, complicated, expensive, and problematic process.
Yes, and everything that they do out there affects everybody.
I mean, and the drivers can get dragged into this too, right? Like with so it's not just like protect the company, it's you got to protect yourself, because if somebody comes after you, or you personally as a driver, like that has that happened to us? Have we seen our drivers included in these litigations?
Yes, they have been included, but we do protect them since
Okay.
they were operating under our authority.
Yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't mean that it's their name is still gets attached to this stuff too, right? So like we will protect them as much as we can.
Yeah, their name will get attached to it, but they are protected 100%.
Wow. Well, that's a wake up call, I would say. Because that's, it's not something you think about, because it is a behind the scenes, after the process type of a thing. Wow. Well, so what do we do as a company then to try to be, to stop these accidents from happening in the first place? Obviously, accidents do happen, unfortunately, and we have to respond to them correctly. But what are we doing from a big picture safety to help minimize these accidents?
My main job is to try and prevent future accidents from occurring. And if I could do that for the drivers, I would. We have multiple safety initiatives that we've put into place, one being Infinity. It's a monthly safety or compliance lesson. Now, do I think that watching a video once a month is going to directly prevent an accident from occurring? No, I don't. But my hope is that it'll keep safety at the forefront of their brains.
Well, it's good. Hopefully, it can prevent an accident. Now, obviously, though, safety isn't just about accidents. There's more to the safety and compliance world. And I know CSA has been a topic of conversation recently. What's going on with our CSA?
That's a really good question. So I would like to go over our CSA scores. CSA is FMCSA's way of measuring how safe or compliant a motor carrier is. And there are several different categories within CSA that we have to be mindful of. You have your hours of service category, your crash category, vehicle maintenance, unsafe driving, driver fitness, and your drug and alcohol category. Now, FMCSA has thresholds for each of these categories, and FMCSA says motor carriers aren't supposed to go over these thresholds in each category. Currently, combined transport is over the hours of service category threshold. We are currently at 85%, and the threshold is 60. Blackwell consolidation is also over two thresholds, one being hours of service and the other is unsafe driving.
So does that mean Blackwell drivers are doing unsafe driving out there?
Well, according to the FMCSA, yes. The unsafe driving category is violations such as speeding, not wearing your seatbelt, lane management, following too close, stuff like that.
So basic safety 101 kind of stuff, like defensive driving.
Basic 101.
All right. How do we reduce those numbers? Just be better? Like, that sounds silly, but
we need our drivers to abide by the laws. Wear your seatbelt. Don't be distracted while driving. Don't follow too close. Make sure that you're in the correct lane. You're not supposed to be over in the left-hand lane. You're supposed to be over in the right-hand lane. We see a lot of those violations in California, but speeding is our top violation for the unsafe driving category.
I know that's difficult with California because it's 55 is the speed limit for trucks through California. But yeah, I mean, you just have to follow the speed limit.
Yeah, in our hours of service category, our top violation is utilizing personal conveyance in a manner that benefits the company. And when you receive that violation, it's called false record of duty status. You're essentially falsifying your logs if you say that you're using the commercial vehicle for personal reasons and you are really advancing the load.
I think PC is something that a lot of drivers understand in theory, but don't necessarily understand in practice. And I think that's what you're seeing. I mean, can you give us a refresh on what PC is and how to avoid getting this false record of duty status kind of violation?
Sure. I mean, we encourage you to use PC, but for personal reasons. So if you need to go to Walmart and go grocery shopping, you can use the PC off-duty driving status. But if you need to go to your next load or you're going to the shop to get maintenance, you're essentially doing something for the company and that benefits the company. So you cannot use personal conveyance in that manner.
So personal conveyance can't be used if you're getting fuel, if you're getting maintenance, or if you're moving your load is basically.
That's correct.
Okay. And that's really the big issue for the hours of service. It's not like guys going over their hours. It's this PC leading to false record of duty.
I wish it was drivers going over their hours because when you utilize PC in an illegal manner, it's considered a critical violation with the FMCSA. So it is a problem. And with Motive, we do have more control over personal conveyance. So we are taking a look to see how we can try and control that. We want drivers to be the captain of their ship and choose when they want to use personal conveyance. But if it becomes a problem, we're going to have to take a look at our policies.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, if we're over the threshold in both companies, it kind of already is a problem. So, I mean, what's our timeline for getting this under control, to let the drivers try to fix this versus us having to change those policies?
Well, we're currently monitoring internal hours of service violations, and we're dealing with drivers on a one-on-one basis right now. But if it continues to be a problem, then we're going to have to take a look at it. Probably within the next 90 days.
I'm not trying to put anyone on the spot here, but would you say this is a few bad apples that are spoiling the bunch, or is this a widespread problem, like within the fleet?
I would say it's just a handful of drivers, and that's why we're trying to deal with it on a case by case basis.
Okay. Well, that's good. So hopefully this is something that we can get under control. How long does it take for us to fix our score?
Points can stay on our score for up to 3 years.
Wow.
And they're time weighted. So each year the points drop down. So we have to wait 3 years for those points to drop off.
Okay. So if you use PC wrong and an officer writes you a ticket for that, for falsifying your record of duty status, that's something that sticks with us for 3 years.
Yeah, and it actually sticks with the driver too. There's a misconception amongst drivers that only the motor carrier gets CSA points. The driver also gets CSA points, and those stay on their record for 2 years.
Wow. Okay. So it's everybody's facing this. So those guys that are having these problems, they've got on their record officially. It's like a school report card, but from DOT, and it's not a good grade, is what I'm hearing you say.
It's not a good grade.
All right. Well, awesome, Melissa. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think that's it. I really appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. Appreciate you sharing all that good information about safety, and hopefully this can help some drivers be safer, be more mindful about accidents, and maybe we can avoid some of those CSA points in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Melissa, for that great interview. Learned a lot about accidents, about liability, and some unfortunate facts about CSA, but hopefully there's some good takeaways for everyone to improve their safety and compliance posture. Our next episode will be out on August 23rd. Our guest will be Travis Spalding with Heavy Haul. If you have any questions, please be sure to email them to us at cbtalk@combinedtransport.com or send your questions to us via Facebook. We appreciate your participation. It is your engagement that makes this podcast work. Thank you for your time, thank you for listening, and thank you for being part of the Combined Transport family.